it's Mrs. No. I hope you're having a great week. I wanted to share with you our next project that we're going to do. And I know that you've learned about monks and illuminations, and so I thought it'd be fun if we made our own illuminations and sort of learned about how to use a calligraphy pen. So the supplies you're going to need are the watercolor paper, the writing of the Lord's Prayer in Latin, and you're going to need your Flair pen, which works really great when you're painting watercolor over it, and your calligraphy pen, which has a chiseled end. And you'll also need your your gold container, along with a thin paintbrush with water, and of course tissue, or not tissue, but paper towel or napkin. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, let's look at some examples. Okay, so if you notice in this example, you see a box around the letter and you see some very intricate detailed drawings in the middle of the letter. You also see some gold being used in there and a lot of flourishes, a lot of sort of leafy, flowery textures.
What is going on?
Okay, so in this example, this is the edge of the manuscript, and you will see a lot of beautiful colors. Once again, very floral, leafy, and I think there's always a story that is being told, whether in the sides or in the actual box where the letters are, and just very detailed, lots of texture and color and detail. Okay, let's look at another example. This is letter B. As you can see, the B is blended in with all the intricate, beautiful designs, but what makes B stand out? It's a different color, and it also has lines that go around the actual character of the letter. And so that's what makes it stand out. If you notice the florals, they're very design orientated. They don't look as realistic or detailed. This might be a good time to practice some of that. Okay, so let's get started and make sure you have your supplies. You need paper that you can just practice on. You need your calligraphy pen that I've provided, and you also need your Lord's Prayer in Latin. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are just going to practice using this calligraphy pen. So if you look at this pen, it's got a beveled edge to it, and I want you to just practice like this. So your first exercise would be to make that mark, and then I want you to use your pen, and I want you to go up and down, zigzag like this, so that when you go up, your line is thin, and when you go down, your line is thick. Okay, and then I want you to figure out with your pen how to make letters. Okay, so for instance, C would have to be thin and then thick. Do you see how I did that? I know it's hard, but up, down, and then thin. So let's take a look at your paper that you have here. And if you look very closely, do you see these little markings right here for each letter? It's kind of like a nice little edge right there. So to practice that, they go like this, down, and then up. Down. Now that wasn't a very good one. So down and then up like this. So down and up. So it's not easy at all. It takes a lot of practice to be able to write like how they did a long time ago. But just like your copywriting, the more you practice copywriting, the better you'll get at it. The same goes for this. But I want you to see this as shapes. I don't want you to see it as letters. I know that's confusing, but I think you'll have a easier time if you see these letters as shapes instead of letters, if that makes sense. So let's go to our first one right here. Let's try to write this word. Let me see if I can sort of zoom in. Okay, maybe not. Okay, so if we look, we'll see a notch. It starts out with a notch, and then it goes up, and then it goes down, and then another notch. Does that look like the N? I think it kind of does. So I'm not looking at the letters. I'm trying to figure out the shapes. So let's go ahead and try the O. So there's the O. I'm just looking at the shapes. I'm not really concerned about what letter this is. I'm really just looking at, is it a straight line there? Is there a curved line there? Is it a thick line? Is it a thin line? And as I'm doing that, I'm keeping in mind that this edge right here will make a thin line. If I push down on this edge, it'll make a thick line. But if I go this direction, it'll make a thin line. If I move my pen this way, and I'm not sure if you can see very well, but if I move my pen this way, this is going to create a thin line like this. And it actually will continue a thin line as you're drawing on that edge. But if you learn and practice how to use this pen in a way where you can incorporate thin and thick, you might have to kind of use your hand motions differently than when you write. And I would even exercise your wrists. Okay, so let's look at that S. Okay, wow, that S is really fancy, isn't it? And it might look hard, but if we focus on the shapes, okay, so there's a curved line there, and there's a thick curved line there, another line here, there's another line that goes, thick line that goes down, and then what do we see? We see a line that goes like that, comes here, and does it need to be perfect? No, it doesn't have to be, because they have taken a long time to perfect the copybook, and we are just trying to attempt copywriting, this kind of writing, and we are trying to attempt it in one sitting. So, okay, so thick. The E is very fancy. All right, and I'm running out of room because I practiced in that section. And then we've got the R, which has this notch right here. So don't forget that little area. And then down. So if I go like this and down, do you notice that my downstroke is thicker and my upstroke is thinner? It's because of the way I'm holding my pen. So if I go this way, it's thicker. If I go down, or sorry, if I go this way, it's thinner. If I go that way, it's thicker. Okay? Now, I don't expect you to write the entire Lord's Prayer using this pen, but I do want you to try to write as much as you can on your watercolor paper. So for this letter P right here, I would, what I would do is I would color in the P like that on the back of it with the soft pencil. And I would just transfer it so that you wouldn't have to figure it out. And I would, after I do that, take your pencil and just trace the shape. This is letter P, but we're going to just trace the shape. So be patient and make sure that you get all of the details. Don't worry about it being too perfect. Like I said, we have not had enough practice to make it the way that, and also this is computerized. So, of course, it's going to be perfect. All right, there we go. When we do that, voila, look at that. I don't know if you can see it, but we have that design now on our watercolor paper without having to figure it out. So yay. Grab your pen. Now you don't have to color this black. As you looked at the examples before this, they weren't all black. But for example purposes, I'm just going to make it black. And I will, in your kit, you should have gold, you will have a gold container that has gold paint in it. And you are welcome to use that gold paint to add some gold touches to it.
I like him.
It's my son. Okay. So it's not perfect, but that is totally fine. Okay? Now, one of the things in the examples that we noticed is that there is a box around usually the first letter. So what you should do is be getting a ruler and making sure that each side is even. So I will get my ruler. Okay, I could not find my ruler. So I just picked up something that was square around my house, and I'm going to try to center this the best I can, and I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to make a square around it. There. Okay. If you look at some of the samples, you'll see that there's a lot of florals that are a lot of floral designs, a lot of flourishes, lot of curvy lines, leaves. You'll even see illustrations of just some things that the script is probably talking about. I'm sure you've learned a lot about this, and so I recommend doing everything in pencil first, just so you have an idea. And I would just go slowly, and if you don't like it, you can always erase it, and just kind of make your letter really interesting. And don't be afraid of what you're drawing. Don't be scared. Just kind of don't feel like you have to do what the examples are, because you don't. You can make up your own designs. For instance, like I could put a tree here to kind of represent life. And it can be just shapes. It doesn't even have to be really detailed. It could just be shapes. So then I'll go like this and just fill up your box with some really ornate. You can pretend to make a vine. Like I said, don't worry about you. If you drew a castle, you can even draw that in the background if you want. Like here's land, and maybe I want to draw a castle here.
What's a castle? What's a castle?
It's my son. He's getting excited. And just some more vines with some really intricate leaves. Look at the examples of real things. Like if you have a book of trees, go ahead and look at that. See what details you could add to it. So they also have a really nice border. Some borders have, these are all just shapes. Like you could add circles, wavy lines, straight lines like this. These are just some ideas that I'm trying to give you. You don't have to follow this. I would love to see what you come up with. And just kind of like that. Okay, so now that I finished that, I can go over it with this pen, or I can add gold to it. And I'm just going to add gold to it right now, just because we're doing the video. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so you should have a small container like this in your art packet, and unscrew it carefully.
Mom, I finished it.
Okay, good. And then you should get a thin brush. Now, I don't have the container with me, but you will, so I'm just going to use this. Go ahead and put your paint in the gold like that. And I'm just going to add some really pretty gold touches to this design. There's a lot of detail, like small detail, in these illuminations. And so you know they've spent a lot of time making those details. And that's, sorry about my son there. Okay, so use gold for highlights, and you're also welcome to use color pencil. So can I?
Oh yeah, sure,
Okay.
yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
So
Choose mine.
I have some watercolor pencils that I gave my son for Easter, and these pencils are really fun, but you don't have to have watercolor pencils. You can use just whatever pencil you'd like. Color pencil. If you don't have color pencil, I might have put some in your packet. I'm not sure. But I think I will do that just so that you have something to color with. And I'm just having fun doing my own thing right now. Okay, now the fun thing about this is that I can add a little bit of water to it. Okay, so now I'm going to add a little bit of water, and I'm going to go very slowly with this pencil. I wish we could get some watercolor pencils. They're really fun. Maybe we can fundraise and try to get some watercolor pencils. So
Mommy,
I don't, if you do use watercolor, which I have added to your packet, you're welcome to it. We don't want our brush to get dry. So just make sure your brush stays wet through the whole thing, okay? And sometimes watercolor tends to run around, so you're welcome to put some tape around your square, but that's not necessary. Just dab it with a paper towel if you feel like it's running off the page or
it's gonna show, Mom. It's gonna show, okay?
Okay, there we go. So
Showing it.
I'm just
It pinned!
I'm basically going over what I drew. So always draw in pencil first and then go over it. That way you know what you want to do. Okay, so maybe I want to make this P this color. Like I said, there's no order. You don't have to do color pencil first. You don't have to do the gold first. You don't have to do the black first. You are free to do whatever you want. But it doesn't hurt to look at the examples and see the style. So you kind of want to stay around the same style as the illuminations that the monks made. Now, I don't know if you noticed this, but this pen, this calligraphy pen, will bleed when water touches it. Okay, so that is kind of what that is for the main letter. Now I'm going to try to write the Lord's Prayer in Latin. And like I said, don't stress about it. You don't have to do all of it, but at least try. Okay, so before I do this, I'm going to draw some lines to give me a sense of where the letters should go, because we don't want it to be uneven. It's just like copywriting. We don't want it, we want it to be evenly spaced. Mommy, we want it to be... Okay, there we go. So let's say that's all I'm going to do, and that is totally fine. Don't have to do the whole thing. Okay, so once again, I'm going to look at the shapes, and wow, this A does not look easy to do. But I'm going to try. There we go. So I have that A, and then I can get a line down here, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so there's a thick line and a thin line up. Then there's a line that goes like that. What else do you see? I want you to, this is good practice. It trains your eyes to see where things are. So what do you think of my A? Do you think that looks good? Okay, so let's go to the next one. Did you see how I made that curve? That's something you can practice. You know, have fun. Try to find out who this pen is and what it can do. So, okay, so this does look very complicated, but break it down. Do one shape at a time. And then it's not so hard if you do it that way. If you try to look at it and you're like, oh, it's overwhelming. But if you break it down one shape at a time, it's actually not that hard, hopefully. Okay, so the next one does look very complicated. It's the letter E. But do not fret. We're just going to break down the shapes again. Okay. Then we do this stroke because that's the thin stroke, and the thick stroke goes down. And
Where's it, Mommy? Where's it?
And there's a line that goes down there. Look at that. There's the E. Is it exactly perfect? No. But it's the experience of doing it that we're looking for. So there's that. Notice how I pushed a little bit harder down to make it thicker. And there's a line here. There's a line that goes here. This thick in there. And then it goes here. So this gives your eyes really good training, right? It helps you break it down, helps your eyes find out where each one goes. Try not to get frustrated when you look at it and you're like, it doesn't look like that. That's okay. You don't need to scribble it. You don't need to start over again. Just let it be. It's okay. No one's going to look at it and be like, that looks horrible. This is just purely for your, for something for you to do. Okay. And just experience. So we noticed that this was capitalized And then here is the small letter that we had used on the practice sheet. Now I realize this pen's really thick. Oops.
Yellow?
And like I said, if you're starting to feel frustrated right now, just take a break. Go do something else. I don't want this to be a stressful thing for you, but I do want you to experience this. Okay?
Mommy, look. You know what this? You know what this? I dropped my hairs on it.
Wow, that's good.
And this is some right there. This book
Okay.
this is
There
called
we go.
Bug Purple Hair. Do you ever go to the playground to see this dog playground? This is actually a dog
All right.
playground.
So my hand is already starting to get tense. So I'm just going to do this, kind of relax my fingers so it doesn't get too tense. And then I'm just going to take a break from it. But if you want to go back to it, continue working on this with your different medias of pen, gold ink, and color pencils or markers if you have them. And do your best and see if you can try to write out a few more words.
That's not the hill.
And I can't wait to see what you come up with. I hope you have fun with it.